To the top left, we have our Terran player in red. It's not a reality, but it's also not a dream. It is.
SK Telecom T1 Fantasy.
This time I couldn't resist. Fantasy down a game against his opponent. Looking good on Antigua Shipyard at first, but then the wrong engagement brings his opponent in the lead and he runs with it. Bottom right, cross position to Fantasy. We have the Zerg player. He is called
Samsungkan RorO.
RorO with a lead in the series, but really has to work for his advantage.
Yeah, he really will. I mean, in the last game, he took a great engagement. He set up something that he was hoping Fantasy was going to fall into his trap and take a bad engagement there. If it didn't work out, then he would have lost the game, but it worked out for him. He made all the right choices afterwards. And he took the base to the left side of the map rather than taking the center base. That was really something that we don't always see, but we can see sometimes. Defended it really well against drops. And he looked good, but he started out from behind, so he needs to hope for something better here in game number 2, I feel.
Well, right now, we have Entombed Valley as the map. And on this map, you have a couple of options. It looks like Fantasy is going into one barracks into expand. I'm more interested to see what RorO does. I feel like those Casbah guys really focus a little bit too much on these roach attacks that we've seen in the last game from RorO. Because on a map like Antigua, I feel you have either to, I don't know. With the timings these days, I feel if you go for something like this, the roach bailing push is still the better option. These roach attacks are decent, but they're just not doing the damage anymore. The Terran players are ready for it, and that's what we could see. RorO in the end traded like roughly cost efficiently, but Fantasy did come out of that engagement okay. I don't think that RorO is going to do it this time. He doesn't have gas just yet, we see him with the pool finishing, so this looks more like him already opting for the late game, trying to set up a good economy and then trying to run with it.
Yeah. You're right. The pushes these days are not doing as much damage. They've been learned. I feel like how he microed that push was cool in some ways, but I think he wasted a lot of time on attacking that command center that definitely wasn't going to be killed. If Fantasy had lifted the command center, then he would have had a great surface area on the bunker and would have been able to take an engagement like that. That may have been the reason why he made that choice. SCV baits the Lings to chase.
Yep.
Kind of fast third command center for Fantasy actually going up.
We have the double command center now for Fantasy, so he really wants to play this also with a strong economy. And this could actually be one of those games where we have both players just sitting tight for quite a while.
10 Lings for RorO is going to be scary. He's trying to hide this from his opponent, but the bunker will finish just in time. He's not going to accomplish much with this.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not quite so sure.
I don't think that he's really gonna go and...
He's just gonna pick up hit points on the left side of the CC, I guess. That's all he can really do here.
Yeah, with the bunker. Force the SCVs back, take down maybe one. I don't even know if he can take down both. He repairs them, nice, and a beautiful pocket here.
Yeah, I think if he just went to the bottom left, the command could have done a lot more there. SCV tries to go scout, but gets shut down by the queens.
Was a nice defense by Fantasy. I mean, he had the bunker and everything already up, so he's playing this really well. And now RorO can spread his creep, can get his gas. I'm interested to see what he does here. He has a double gas now up. I would be a little bit surprised to see the attempt to hit a timing. I think that he's going to start with the third base fairly soon, and that we see both of them just heading into the middle.
Yeah, killing these rocks, sending the drone over to the third. Everything lines up to that. And with this third base, when he takes it, he'll start his lair tech with the gas he's just made. He's going to try to scout. He sees Fantasy has a third base, he doesn't have a third base landed yet, but he's going to see if he flies it over in just a little bit that there's a third command center there. We saw last game Fantasy taking a very fast third command center out in the open, but this time he's playing a little bit safer.
The scouting overload has actually a bit of a shot to see the base here, the additional command center, but didn't see it. Turns back. Doesn't want to lose it here. The tech for Fantasy is nearly done now. Well, with his starport, of course, so that he can also start with a few Vikings and try to see if he just forces back 3. But so far, RorO doesn't really focus on his spread enough. He has those extra queens and he uses them in the middle of the map, but it's only 4 queens in total, so it doesn't go up to 6, which you usually see with this build. The third base is now coming up. him getting the baiting nest, more of a precaution here to make sure that if there is an early attack or a timing of Fantasy that he can deal with it.
Yeah.
So I like that Fantasy is going into the early upgrades. He wants to have the +1/+1, and if he sticks with his upgrades...
He'll be way ahead if he sticks with them. I mean, look at it now. He's already about a fourth of the way done.
And we
the
don't...
Evolution Chamber's just started.
Yeah, exactly. The Evolution Chamber's just started, halfway done now. But if he hits those timings well for the upgrades, Fantasy will have a huge lead in every single battle until the end of the game.
RorO he's got enough queens to make these Hellions look really silly. He's just going to try to zone them, but the thing is he needs to block the ramp, and he does not.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That queen...
That was too late.
That queen was really barely able to block just by herself, but damage being done here.
You can do that, but he did it too late. The queen was angled too far to the left at the beginning, and now he loses a fair amount of Harvesters. This is 9 Harvesters against 4 Hellions. I'll take that tray any day.
Yeah. Worker count now even. Fantasy players with a fast third commander. Fantasy has plus the damage. He's also got a ton of scan energy for some reason. I guess it's because so concerned about microing his Hellions, he's not quite able to hit those mules. He just dropped 4, and he still has 2 more available he actually didn't use. But either way, it's his choice.
Look at the upgrades here. 1-1 started, whereas Fantasy is nearly done with his. He doesn't line up the armory perfectly here. He will lose a little bit of time, but it's still good enough to give him the chance to go into +2/+2 and have a huge lead over RorO here in the upgrade department.
Roach Warren and Spire going down. Oh, look at that timing on that one. That's really nice. Well, the Roach Warren and the Spire going down at the same time. I don't quite feel like I know what the Roach Warren is for, but I think that the Spire is lined up really nicely.
I actually feel that he only built the Roach Warren because he had those Hellions running in and he saw that there were still more Hellions on the map. He didn't really know what composition Fantasy was going for. So he's like, well, if you are trying to hit timings here with enough Hellions, I get my Roach Warren, that gives me a little bit of safety. And if you go into Mag, I have the means of building the Roaches immediately.
That's what it seems like to be, because nothing else really makes sense.
It was more of a precaution.
He's saved by the engineering bay for now, but nope. Gonna die.
And talking about the engineering base, there they are, and we have +2/+2 started.
About a half cycle ahead of his opponent's upgrades.
Yeah, so that is pretty awesome for Fantasy. I have to say, when it comes down to the macro game in general, Fantasy does a good job here. But a Zerg player that is completely left alone is scary. So Creep is still spread by RorO. He takes his 4th base, gets another macro hatch, and also all his tech up. Fantasy is doing the better job with the upgrades and everything, but he still has to be careful. A Zerg on a 4 or 5 bases with the economy behind him, that is really scary. I'm actually a little bit surprised that we see Mutalisks now by RorO, but that's once again just a means of shutting down drops.
Yeah, since it's only 6 and he already has the infestation, but he's just going to make 6. I feel like he doesn't have to do it, but he just wants to do it to feel safe, and that's kind of a stylistic choice that a lot of Zerg players like to make, because they like to be able to kill those mid-decks. Sometimes you can also pick off siege tanks with the Mutas if you're careful.
I don't even think that he's going to try to do that with 6. He's going to try to poke a little bit at the bases, force a few turrets, not to do damage, just force a few turrets, and with the overlords that he has to the right and to the left side of his bases, you will see dropships coming in, and then the Mutalisks are going to help him out. This is not designed to do like a lot of damage. 10 tumors at the same time for RorO. He really spreads his creep right now, getting those extra scouts out. Even the armor upgrade now for those Mutalisks, and of course later for the Broodlord, that's really what he wants to do.
Yep. Turret's already ready here, so are the Marines. Combat Shield's finished up a little bit later, but he's making 11 Marines at a time. He's really powered up here. He's going to take a massive supply lead. Oh, with 2-2 actually. He could move out with his first 3 siege tanks as his factory's finishing up. I think he could actually move out and put some pressure on. It's up to him whether he wants to or not. He doesn't know how many mutas are going to come in, so he doesn't want to get his pants caught down as 3rd base potentially if a big muta mainly attack happens while he's out on the map. But it looks like he's just going to wait.
RorO now, no draw plays against him. Extra turrets have been forced. Has a quick poke at the 3rd, wants to borrow Zergling, but RorO isn't ready yet. Let's see if Fantasy starts 3-3. +2/+2 is nearly done. Does he want to hit a timing here on base on 2-2, or does he actually go into 3-3 right away? He has the resources. Look at the creep spread here. That is already so far across the map. He's at the Zalnaga Watchtower now. And there's the 3rd attack upgrade. Really well done.
Yeah, really well timed here by Fantasy. Not really wasting any time at all. +3 armor will start as soon as he has enough money.
Exactly. He was lacking gas.
And there it is. So, Fantasy is going to have to clear up a ton of creep. That gives RorO a lot of time to get that Greater Spire started. He's got to, though, make sure he's wasting any of his units here. This is really scary how far he's moving those defenses forward. There's the Ultralisk Cavern. He's actually going to make that his choice rather than Greater Spire for this map. And that third base attack I was talking about with a few Banelings and Mutas and Speedlings is actually going to occur to the right side while Fantasy is busy clearing up his creep. Here it goes.
Could do a lot of damage.
Yeah,
He moves
there's
in.
nothing there. There's one Banshee and a bunker. Now he sieges up. The Baneling hits were a little bit poor.
Yeah, and he goes for the army. He tries to take down the siege tanks, but the Baneling don't do the damage that they needed to do. Takes down one tank, takes down another one, loses the Mutalisk. Well, that's not too bad. Bottom left, we have the town player now in good position, 183 supply, and still this bank for Fantasy.
He's got the position to kill 2 bases now. The first one falls, the fourth.
He's pretty low on tanks, though. Only 4 siege tanks.
Yeah, and that's what these Lings are going to capitalize on a little bit here at the third base. But Fantasy can easily kill now the last base of RorO to the bottom left.
But he's going to lose a lot of the third.
Oh no, and where are these drones going?
They are lemming drones. They are a little bit suicidal here. Adrenaline Glance not done yet.
He's still up in Harvester's head because of that harassment by quite a lot. 16 Harvesters up.
And no fourth base for Fantasy. There are burrowed Zerkins there. Adrenaline Glance nearly hitting. Ultralisk Cavern is done. First of them are building. And we have now also the Greater Spire on its way. A huge bank for Fantasy. You need to build units, buddy. He doesn't build anything. Look at that production tab. There's nothing on it. Now finally he starts the next round of Marines, but only 6 of them. The guy's on 2,500 minerals.
Yeah, he's got a ton of factories. He's just so worried about the Ling attack.
Why doesn't he build siege tanks?
He seems to be too busy microing his against the Ling attacks and also at his opponent's third. He actually didn't kill the base at the bottom left either. The 5th base is still alive.
He still doesn't build anything. He builds a few Marines, but he's not even using all his barracks.
Now he starts building all of them.
Finally, there we go, 11 at a time. But nothing else. Look at this bank full.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm like,
there we
I would buy
go,
a planet
siege
for that.
tanks and a few medivacs. That took ages. If he uses that bank and goes into those production cycles, he can just throw wave after wave against RorO and force him into submission.
Yeah, he's actually turning around here too, which I feel a little bit.
You know, it happened to him earlier already a little bit. He was heavily supply blocked a couple of times when he was building up to this. But right now, that's really something that a player from the caliber of Fantasy should really be able to do.
Yeah.
Attacking at the same time, getting those units ready. He doesn't even have a max supply here. He's once again missing supply depots. He could have killed RorO already.
Yeah, and he's actually getting a little bit overcautious. I feel going back to defend now. He doesn't even continue to push the creep back. He's got an awesome army composition. It's much better than his opponents. He's up 40 supply in army, and he's just not using it. He's actually just sitting at home under a sensor tower right now like he's scared. It's like he thinks the supply is in the opposite direction of it actually is.
RorO has now a lot of time. That's the big problem that Fantasy had. He had the timing here. He could have just reproduced his army and throw one wave after another against RorO, and RorO did not really have the units to deal with that. But now RorO has the time that he needs. Here comes the drop play that we talked about earlier. The Mutalisks, they are ready to intercept. And Fantasy is still in a lead, still didn't build. There are the supply depots that we talked about earlier, finally gonna go to the max supply. But still, RorO has now the time to prepare.
Yep. And RorO is ready, but will he be able to stop this push? He's got some time, so these creep tumors are going to grant him, but he needs to get great fungals here. And again, very low on the infestor count. 4 infestors is normal in most cases, but if he had more, I think that... Okay, now he's actually adding 2 more, so I misspoke a little bit there. He's going up to 6, but with 6 infestors, you should be able to get great fungals on these Marines if he can catch the tanks on siege, if he can see Fantasy coming.
And now he gets additional queens. He already has 6 and he's getting additional 3 because he wants to go for the transfuse. This is the composition that killed Fantasy in the last game. That's exactly what RorO is trying to do here.
Yep. He's going to need a lot more Corruptors though, and a few fewer Ultralisks.
It's even stronger because he has the Ultralisks now to back it up. He has the ground to take damage, to tank for the for the Broodlords, and that's gonna be so scary.
This is even scarier though, I feel, at this moment in time, because his Mutas are just too far to the right side to stop the drop. Now when he pulls everything back to the fin here, that's when Fantasy's going to go into the 4th base. Looks like RorO though is not overreacting. He sends just enough units back to the fin. But here comes Fantasy. He is going to go to 4th regardless.
Where are they? Now we need the funnels.
We need them so badly.
But the siege tanks are sieged up. Oh, the queens. Yes, do have transfuse energy, but still. But RorO has forced it back.
Yeah, Fantasy's not going to push his luck here. The Marines are not quite finished yet. He wants to get this hatch, but he wants not to be able to push it.
No, that's not going to happen. But still, 4 bases for Fantasy. That's a really good economy. You can see here at the tab to the top right that we have him on 1,200 minerals and a lot of gas as well. For some reason, you know, it feels a little bit like Fantasy is actually getting double gas. I've never seen a Terran player honestly constantly on so much gas like Fantasy.
Sometimes, you know, sometimes you see it, but it's not quite like this, you know, and he just spends so much resources on Marines. That drone dove into the ground to save himself.
The double Ghost Academy is really smart here. We talked about these nukes a lot in this matchup, and this is the right choice that he makes. The Marines, of course, at the bottom, they are doomed. Even the Baneling is helping out here. One that he did not need, but use anyways. The problem for Fantasy is really that RorO is trying to work towards this composition which he will attempt to use to kill Fantasy. But the Terran player has all the means, has the production, has the income and the composition to take down RorO. It's just a question of how well do you control your units.
This slow army that RorO is building is basically so vulnerable to nuke play because he can't come back to defend nukes. He's going to have to only rely on spine crawlers and speedlings to defend nuke attacks with ghosts, especially when they're cloaked. So he can't send his rulers back. Also, Fantasy can use nukes to zone out the army because it's so slow.
But talking about the nukes, once again, Fantasy is refusing to get these upgrades. He's going for the +1 attack right now. He still has the resources. Where's the personal cloaking? Where is the Mervis Reactor? Where do we have the nukes? Why don't we see that on the tab? I have to say that Fantasy is still in a great position here, but Fantasy is really messing up his macro in this game. I don't know why. I don't feel that is what he usually does, but at this point...
I mean, look at the production tabs. It's nothing versus everything. Look at the tab for RorO.
He's maxed out, of course, but there are upgrades that he could get for his Vikings, for the Ghosts.
Well, he could get Cloak and Mobius Reactor.
Yeah.
And he's not doing it. It looks like that's kind of like something he's not really focused on right now is Ghosts, more so just an idea that he had. He's not able to deal with these Lings under his command, so that's posed a problem for him in Game 1 and a little bit in Game 2. He's going to try to micro this drop to target down the hatch, and I think he should be able to get it. No, he goes to the main instead.
There's Cloak and the Mervis Reactor. There we have it. Drop here. That is not going to do too much.
Oh, and the bundles are good. There's a lot of spine crawlers to support as well, but the Viking count is insane.
But here come the bundles, and we have a lot of Corruptors as well. The Corruptor count is still at 11. The Vikings are at 10, but the Marines are moving in, and those bundles are a little bit too late. The Queens trying to transfuse, but not enough micro here.
Yeah, the transfuser were way late. Actually, you said it best. You said not enough micro here. There was almost none from RorO. Now he's going to lose everything, including his base. The Corruptors still remain here to take out the medivacs. A few Ultras join him, but the Marauder count is quite high. He's just going to kite against the Ultras, and it should be fine.
I think that Fantasy succeeded in what he was trying to do. That's what we saw here. He dropped a massive amount of units to the right side, and RorO was caught off guard by the attack at the left. So he wasn't really ready for this micro. He wasn't ready for that. He jumped back, and he just tried to position his units as fast as possible, dropped a few fungals off, but then he realized, oh my god, the Vikings are too strong. I have to go in with the Corruptors. He tried to start with the Corruptors, focusing the Vikings, and at the same time, the Marines started in and attacked his Brood Lords. So he knew, okay, I have to transfuse, but he just was not fast enough because he had to do all these things at once, and it was just too much.
It was stressful. It was a lot of multitasking for him, and +3 Carapace finishing up for his Brood Lords right now, and he actually survived there. I thought for a moment he might just roll over and die, but he has that extra base to the bottom left that was not killed. Corruptors are finally going to work to kill all those medevacs that Fantasy forgot about.
Fantasy also forgot about the nukes and still has this bank here. RorO in this game can, I mean, these are stressful engagements. I feel how this game currently works is that we have long periods where both players don't have to use a lot of micro, don't have to do a lot, just focus on the macro, which is not really Fantasy's strong side today for whatever reason. But then we have this outbursts of micro from both of them, where we have like double engagements or 3 engagements at a time, and that's where Fantasy is really able to get the better position for his army, and also just micros a little bit better than RorO. So RorO gets the advantage here, my opinion, in the overall macro, but Fantasy in the fights itself is doing a better job. And you can see again, no nukes for him. He has the resources and he has the upgrades for the Ghosts.
He's getting Ghosts even,
but he doesn't have the nukes.
He does not. He's actually got a cool little expansion stuff in the middle of the map, though, that's protected by double rocks that he's dropping only mules at. That's the only thing he can get in there. That's pretty cool.
If Fantasy would play this with nukes to the left, to the right, everywhere, and then with his main army, I don't think that RorO could
He would not stand a chance.
Not in this game, not on this map.
But at this point, Fantasy may just win the game anyways. He's got such a large army that RorO cannot deal with. This time he's going to kill the hatchery over here, the 5th base. The 4th is going to have to be canceled potentially if Fantasy goes in and targets it. RorO is looking like a deer in the headlights right now. He doesn't have anything he can do. Doesn't know what he wants to do. Yeah, and here we go. The army is bungled, but I don't think there's enough actual damage output for RorO to end this. The Viking power is too good.
Fantasy has way too much here, and he has the good composition this time. Enough Marines to deal with the air units. The Marauders on the ground are taking down every single queen. There is not enough. Really well done here by Fantasy. The battles are just always his. He's always winning the battles in this engagement. He did not make a mistake like on the Antigua shipyard with the high ground. He won every single battle. He had problems in the macro, but his micro was just too strong for RorO.
Yep. GG. 1-1 now. Fantasy ties the series. Boxer, of course, in the booth talking to him a little bit. RorO taking, in game number 1, being behind and going into game number 2. He started out, I feel, a little bit ahead in some ways and ended up falling apart. And Fantasy, he definitely had some problems with macro there. It was maybe some nerves showing through.
His strength was in the fights. That's where he did a really great job. In the fights, he was really the better player here. And that pressured RorO a lot.
Next map is going to be Whirlwind, a massive map. And we'll see how RorO shape things up here. I feel like this map really plays into his style more than Fantasy's. It's hard to take engagements on a map of this size consistently well when you have to walk across the map, whereas, you know, the game goes longer. Fantasy can't hit his macro, he's going to fall behind. This is true. If he plays like he played last game, then he's going to really fall behind him.
Well, the engagements were really great, and I liked how he focused on his upgrades. It was just like the upgrades for his army. It was a few things that didn't go well. I don't know why. I feel that is not what we would usually see from him. In the second round, he played much stronger in his macro than he did today in the last game, but I feel that's not going to occur in Whirlwind. Game 3, I feel we are going to see a very different game from both players. Let's jump right into it. Deciding game between Fantasy and